Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us as we turn to health matters right now. Now, November is, as we said at the beginning of the show, Lung Cancer Awareness Month, a vitally important opportunity to highlight the burden and risk factors of lung cancer around the world. And I have a feeling we're going to get some shocking numbers and statistics today. In fact, lung cancer is the second most common type of cancer and the leading cause of cancer death worldwide. And here to unpack this issue is a Lung Cancer Awareness Month advocate and lung cancer in general, a person who has, I think, opened our eyes, professor and researcher at the UCT Lung Institute, Richard van Zyl-Schmidt and Dorothy Duploy from Cancer, both doing incredible work in their respective spaces. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always with a wry smile, Prof, that you join us this morning, because we know this. We've heard this. It's been hammered down our throats for the longest time, and we resist. And I'm talking about the smokers in the world. There is an opportunity now to shift that perception, and just even if we help 1 out of 10 people, it feels like a success. But let's start at the negative side of the story. Why is it that lung cancer is the leading cause of lung cancer death? What is going on in this dynamic? What makes it so devastating?
So the biggest challenge with cancer is diagnosis. And the problem with lung cancer is that by the time you diagnose it, generally it's spread. So unlike breast cancer, where you can self-examine, lung cancer, there's no way of detecting it until it causes a problem. So until you start coughing, losing weight, and by that time, it's already spread and then is much less sensitive to treatment.
Early detection seems to be how we are going to win the current phase of the battle against all forms of cancer right now. We need infrastructure, we need people around us. Dorothy, you must be sitting at these moments saying, but this is what we've been doing for the last 20 years. What does cancer do specifically? Because you play a very dynamic role. I know it's not just about awareness.
Yes, we have a three-legged program. Our first one is research. We fund research, and then the findings of that research is used to develop our intervention programs, which is early detection, screening clinics, education, a lot of education and awareness, and specific topics in specific months. In November, it's men's health, and also it's a lung cancer awareness month. Then we also do support. We were fortunate that with the dawn of the COVID pandemic, we also launched our 7-language telecounseling line.
Brilliant.
And that worked out well because people couldn't get to support groups, they couldn't get out of their homes. And in our telecounseling line, which is a phone call away, we had 7 trained counselors and the 7 different languages where we can support families, loved ones, patients, etc. around the question of why me, why did I get cancer, what do I do? Waiting times at hospitals, we know were an issue during COVID. People couldn't get into their appointments, etc.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, and I applaud you. I've been working alongside you guys in various guises for many years, so I understand that the nature of that role. This is the most amazing leaflet, and we get bombarded with so many kind of bits of information around these things, and I suppose by that very nature, we just ignore the clutter. This hits home, and I'm going to try and bring out as many of these as I possibly can. One thing that really jumped off here, I love the fact that after just 1 year, your risk, and this is 1 year after quitting smoking, your risk of having a heart attack will have dropped by half. That is incredible. I love the positive reinforcement, but we do still need to drive home this message that it is fatal, and we wonder why people can't break that cycle. Let's start with the risk factors. I just make the smoking lung cancer connection. Is that where this battle line has been drawn?
Yeah, I mean, 90+% of lung cancer is tobacco. There are a few occupational things, gases and other exposures. There are a few genetics, but 99% is tobacco, and that's the challenge. And the other challenge is the disconnect. The cancer happens when you're in your 50s and 60s, and the smoking happens from your 20s, 30s on. And so we don't think 30 years ahead, but this is one of those legacy things. Although if you do stop smoking, your risk of getting cancer drops over time. So that's brilliant. But unfortunately, the lag between starting and getting is that disconnect.
I will tell you right now, your blood pressure will drop back down to normal in 20 minutes. Your body is an amazing thing and it can heal itself, but I think the shift here is it's not the next 2 years, 3 years, maybe another fortunate benefit of COVID is we can see the long-term trajectory. You do this for your kids, you do this for your family, you do this for the people around you, and I have a feeling you're going to need the people around you to help you kick the habit. So we're going to continue to chat about that, but it is Lung Cancer Awareness Month, an opportunity to cast a light on something that is having a massive impact, not just on individuals' lives, but I would imagine on the medical fraternity, how much money is needed to support those that are going through this. But we'd love to hear from you. 063-408-8863. If you've got a personal perspective, drop us a voice note.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to our health focus this morning. I promised you some alarming facts, so let's continue on that tip. Did you know that in 2020, there were 2.21 million new lung cancer cases and almost 2 million deaths globally? Now, professor and researcher at the UCT Lung Institute, Richard van Zyl-Schmidt and Dorothy Duploy from Cancer are still with us this morning to continue to unpack this topic of lung cancer, being Lung Cancer Awareness Month. And of course, we invited you guys to weigh in. 063-408-8863 is our WhatsApp line. And we've got a voice note coming through from Meer Miller. Let's hear what they had to say this morning.
Good morning, Feel Good Expresso team. Lovely discussion, Mrs. Nirmala Devi Mudley of Amkumas. What I'd like to know about lung cancer, is it like all other cancers where when detected, it gets treated, you go into remission, do have an extended chance in life? Or is it a cancer where once detected, depending, I think, on the stage of it, you've got time frame, limited to live? Explain and allow us to understand lung cancer. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too, Mira. Thank you so much for that. No pressure. Prof, I reckon this one needs to fall on you. You kind of hinted towards the fact that early detection becomes one of the major kind of watershed moments here. If you're not detecting it early enough, it can spread. But why does it sit on that? Is it purely because it's so difficult to know that it's or see those signs and symptoms? How does it weigh up in that kind of cancer life journey, if you will?
Yeah, so with all cancers, they just staged 1, 2, 3, 4. That's just standard for any cancer. We unfortunately tend to detect them when they are in the 2 and 3s, and usually 2 and 3 means spread, so either into a gland or outside of the main center. There are 2 types of cancers, really fancy, called small cell and non-small cell. The small cell cancers are rarer and they tend to be more sensitive to chemotherapy.
Okay.
A non-small cell, which is the general one we see, unfortunately is not. And so the only treatment for that generally is to remove it. And so if we get it under 1 centimeter, so that's like a 20-cent piece, smaller than that, you can do surgery, remove that section of lung, provided it hasn't spread, you're cured. So that's the challenge, is to catch it that early. If we're in the 2, 3s, and 4 stage, then chemotherapy doesn't tend to work so well. Radiotherapy sometimes just to shrink it. So we really have a very small window with a small group of cancers to catch them really early. Otherwise, yes, it is a death sentence, unfortunately, for most people.
The battle line is then clearly drawn then in terms of detection. And we talk about education, Dorothy, almost to the point where I think people kind of switch off and they think, oh, well, the research, the medical side is the important stuff when it comes to an awareness month like this. But it's almost more important, hearing what the Prof is saying, that people are educated about signs and symptoms, but also having that support structure around them when they enter into that medical phase, which is going to be quite hectic. So how do you balance this support network, and is that being done to a degree that people are getting the message? Do you feel like a Cancer Awareness Month is landing, or do we need to rejig and rethink the way that we're approaching this?
Yes, I think that when we look at the statistics for lung cancer, obviously you need to get in early diagnosis, know what your signs and symptoms are, go and have yourself checked out, etc. So we're spending a lot of time on education and awareness. And of course, if you can prevent it through reaching our youth specifically, and like Prof said, it starts early, but you only see the actual effects as you grow older. And so a lot of education and awareness and going for, what we find is we get a lot of distress calls from family members and patients where the lung cancer has been misdiagnosed.
Oh, wow,
Because it masks itself in many ways. Lung cancer is sometimes not the first thing that the medical profession think of when somebody presents with symptoms. And so by the time it's detected, it is in stage 3 and 4. So a lot of education and awareness and going and have yourself checked if you have any of the symptoms and making sure that you take care and looking at what causes it. We do know that we do get the stress calls from someone that would say, but I've never smoked in my life, and yet I've got lung cancer. And then we look at the secondary causes, secondhand smoking being one of them, and then also the lung cancer being a secondary lesion to a primary cancer.
Okay.
Which is cancer could have started somewhere else and then moved to the
spread
lung.
into the lungs.
Yeah. So those are all the questions that the patient grapples with when they are diagnosed.
And I think once that diagnosis has happened, you need that support structure around you and people you can relate to. We're talking a lot about the signs and symptoms. We're going to delve specifically into what that is and the action plan if you feel in any way that you need to be checked up. But I think it's an opportunity for us to shift the culture in a general sense and hit them when they're young. I absolutely love the fact that there is an entire month dedicated to this. 0634088863. If you've got a message or a question for our amazing panel this morning, please drop us a voice note.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back as we wrap up our conversation this morning on lung cancer and Lung Cancer Awareness Month, which we are currently enjoying right now with Professor and researcher at the UCT Lung Institute, Richard van Zyl-Smit, and Dorothy Duploy from Cancer. The UCT Lung Institute have released the most amazing little pamphlet here, and I love these positive affirmations. So get this, after just 48 hours, your chance of having a heart attack will have decreased. All nicotine will have left your body. That's just 2 days. That's incredible. Your sense of taste and smell will return to normal. I love that. I love the notion of positive reinforcement and getting people to be proactive, because clearly what we've been doing hasn't worked. So we need to see that shift. Maybe a bit of fear is, a healthy dose of fear is necessary. Signs and symptoms. I know there is an overlap with other conditions. What are those major signs that we need to look out for, the red flags?
So the biggest one that we worry about is cough. Now, not every cough is cancer. Colds and flus come and go. But if you have a cough that just won't go away, a couple of weeks, you're otherwise feeling well, but a nagging cough, that's probably the most important one to be aware of and not ignore. Coughing up blood, losing weight are seriously dangerous signs. Tends to occur much later on. But that nagging cough that just won't go away, that's the one you need to get checked out.
In fact, we've had a couple of voice notes come through this morning, and I think a similar question coming through. Let's hear from Anonymous what they had to say or pose as a question.
Good morning, good morning. I want to know if lung cancer is different from TB, because it's like it has the same symptoms. Is it different from TB?
Anonymous, very good question. We know how devastating TB can be. So how do those two conditions present, and in terms of how they exhibit and then obviously treatment?
Yeah, so it's one of the biggest challenges we have in South Africa is because we have so much TB, cancer often gets missed. Dorothy mentioned that.
Yeah.
That cough, loss of weight, even sometimes coughing up blood, TB or cancer. Chest X-ray, difficult to distinguish cancer from a TB. Often the cancer may be sitting alongside. You get the TB.
Scar tissue.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to differentiate the two. Obviously, you test for TB. If it's positive, it's got TB. But we've always been taught, and this is one of my old professors always used to say, 10% of people in Cape Town can have TB and cancer.
Cancer, wow.
So if you're over 60 and you're coughing and it could be cancer or TB, we need to make sure it's not both. That's the kind of group. In your 20s or 30s, it's more likely to be TB. It's unlikely to be cancer. But yes, we do need to differentiate the two, and it's not always that straightforward, unfortunately.
Nagging cough, see a practitioner. Simple as that. Just take that first step. Dorothy, what do we need to do here? What is for you, in your heart of hearts, as someone who's worked in the front lines for as long as you have, what do I, as a normal South African, need to do to help you in your efforts over this very important time?
We would want more awareness around the causes and how smoking, like Prof said, smoking plays a huge role in lung cancer. And how do we handle that? How do we handle the youth and the hubbly bubbly, etc., and the phase that they go through, where you know, youth, you think you're untouchable,
Unbreakable,
and
yeah.
unbreakable, and so more awareness around that, and awareness programs, and then of course also for the adults. To look at second-hand smoking and how their smoking practices impacts on the young in the homes. We've had many grandparents coming to us and saying that the smoking of the hubbly bubbly, their children think it's fine for their little ones
like
to
a toy,
get
yeah.
involved because it's a social thingy, but we do know the effects that has. So we would want more youth to become involved, become peer educators to educate others, because youth listens to youth.
It's a lot more powerful.
It's a lot
in
more
that sense.
powerful, yes.
I think we all know that we can do something within our personal capacity to wage this war. Professor, thank you so much for dedicating your life to this. Dorothy, thank you so much for mobilizing the masses in this space. I'm going to do my utmost to let this sink in and spread this word to as many people as possible. I know we get hit with so many negative numbers and so many dark and gloomy facts in the space. It is very good to focus on the positive sometimes, but the bottom line is cancer in this space is devastating. Lung cancer is one of the most devastating, in fact, and the heartbreaking reality is that in most cases, it's preventable. This is one that we can cure by prevention. So please think about what you can do in your own space. But to you guys, thank you so much for doing this every day of your lives. But today, especially, we appreciate and thank you for your contributions as well.